A loyal German shepherd, wounded in the line of duty, lay on the edge of life and death. But what his police partner did next left everyone speechless. This is a story of courage, sacrifice, and the kind of bond that can never be broken. The kind of bond that lives on, even in the face of death. The night was quiet, too quiet. Only the distant hum of cars passing through the city echoed in the background. Officer Jake Reynolds, a seasoned 35-year-old veteran, sat silently in his patrol car. His short black hair was slightly tousled, his green eyes focused yet tired. Beside him sat his most trusted partner, Shadow. Shadow was a black and tan German shepherd, his amber eyes sharp, alert. For 5 years, Jake and Shadow had faced every danger together. They were more than a team, they were brothers. Respected by the entire precinct for always taking the toughest calls. Suddenly, the radio crackled. Jake's hand instinctively reached for it as a voice came through. All units, armed robbery in progress. 12th and Elm, suspects believed to be armed, proceed with caution. Jake did not hesitate. Unit 27 responding, he said, steady and calm. Shadow and I are on our way. As they neared the location, something felt off. The street lights were out. Darkness wrapped around the alley like a shroud. And in that silence, a low growl came from the back seat. Shadow sensed it too. Jake opened the car door. Let us do this, buddy, he whispered, releasing Shadow. They moved slowly. Jake's hand hovered near his firearm. Shadow stepped ahead, tense, focused. Then, a sudden crash. The sharp sound of shattering glass broke the silence. Muffled voices came from a nearby warehouse. Jake gave a silent signal. Shadow drew in closer. And then, it all unraveled in a heartbeat. Gunshots tore through the air. Jake dove behind cover, heart pounding. But Shadow was already moving. Trained to protect without hesitation. He leapt toward the danger, toward the gunfire. Shadow, no! Jake shouted. But it was too late. Shadow intercepted one of the suspects with precise, brutal strength. But as Jake prepared to move in, another figure emerged from the shadows. A deafening shot rang out. And Shadow cried out, a sound that shattered Jake's soul. Shadow! Jake screamed. His voice cracked with fear as he returned fire. The second suspect went down. But Jake was already running. Shadow lay still, on the cold warehouse floor. Blood pooling beneath him. His amber eyes, those eyes that once held endless fire, were dim. Flickering. Jake dropped to his knees, pressing his hands against the wound. Stay with me, buddy, please, do not leave me. His voice broke, tears streamed freely. Within minutes, backup arrived. The scene was secured, the suspects in custody. But Jake never looked away from Shadow. He gathered him in his arms, ignoring the chaos, the flashing lights, the noise. He drove fast, desperate. Hold on, Shadow, he whispered as they sped through the dark. I cannot lose you, not like this. In the rearview mirror, Jake could see Shadow lying still in the back seat. His breathing was shallow, but steady. Jake's mind was a storm of memories. Their first day at training. The countless lives Shadow had saved. And every moment that had made them more than just partners. By the time they reached the emergency hospital, Jake was trembling. The veterinary team rushed out the moment they saw the car. Their faces turned serious the second they laid eyes on Shadow. He is critical, one of them said. They lifted Shadow carefully onto a stretcher. Jake stayed close, refusing to let go, refusing to leave. Inside, under the harsh white lights of the hospital, time stood still. They told him they would do everything possible. But Jake did not hear them. He only paced, his fists clenched, the image of Shadow falling playing over and over in his mind. An hour later, the lead veterinarian appeared. A woman in her early 40s, face pale and tired. Her eyes held no comfort, But they did not hold despair either. Shadow's injuries are severe, she said gently. He lost a lot of blood, and the bullet grazed his lung. We have stabilized him for now. But the next 24 hours are critical. Jake nodded, swallowing hard. Can I see him? He asked. The vet hesitated, then finally gave a slow nod. He is sedated, but he will know you are there. Jake stepped into the dim recovery room. And the sight before him nearly shattered him. Shadow lay still, hooked up to machines. Tubes, wires, and the soft, steady beeping of a heart monitor filled the silence. Jake knelt beside him, gently placing his hand on Shadow's head. Hey, buddy, he whispered. You have to fight now. We have been through too much. You cannot stop here, not like this. For a moment, nothing. Then, a small twitch in Shadow's tail. Jake let out a shaky breath, a fragile smile breaking through the storm. That is it, he said, his voice barely holding together. You are not giving up, and neither am I. He sat down in the corner of the room. The sterile smell of antiseptic thick in the air. Machines beeped quietly, each sound a reminder that Shadow was still here. Still fighting. But just barely. The vet's words echoed again. The next 24 hours are critical. Jake looked over at him. Shadow's chest rose and fell slowly, labored. His black and tan fur was caked with dried blood. A thick bandage wrapped around his side. Jake stood, walked over, and gently placed his hand back on Shadow's head. You have always been the strong one, he said softly. And now, I need you to be strong one more time. Because I cannot do this without you. Time passed like molasses. Hour after hour, the world outside faded into silence. One by one, officers from the precinct began arriving at the hospital. Each one carried not just worry, but memories. Officer Maria Martinez, a rookie still fresh to the job, stepped in quietly. She held out a small paper cup of coffee and sat beside Jake. Shadow is a legend, you know, she said gently. When I first joined, they told me the story of how he found those lost kids in the woods. You have the best partner anyone could ever ask for. Jake gave a faint smile, but kept his eyes on the floor. Yeah, I do, he murmured. That is why he has to make it. He is not just my partner. He is family. Midnight approached. Each passing minute heavier than the last. Then, Dr. Angela Hayes returned. Her eyes were tired, but in them was something new. Hope. Shadow is stable, she said. Her voice calm, but cautious. He is still critical, but he is responding to the transfusion. And we have managed to reduce the swelling around his lung. Jake exhaled, his shoulders trembling. Not from fear, but from the tiniest spark of something he had not felt since the warehouse. Faith. If he makes it through the night, his chances will improve significantly. Dr. Hayes' words echoed softly in the quiet room. Jake exhaled slowly. Relief and tension collided within him, a war of emotions he could no longer control. Thank you, he said, his voice thick, caught between hope and fear. Dr. Hayes gave a gentle nod. Of course. He will need all the encouragement he can get. Jake pulled a chair close to the stretcher. He sat down slowly, reaching out to rest his hand on Shadow's head. His fingers moved through the thick fur, familiar, comforting. Memories surged like a tide. Shadow bounding through the training course. That first day. His tail wagging wildly. As if he already knew this was his purpose. This was where he belonged. You have saved so many lives, buddy, Jake whispered, voice low and filled with emotion. Now it is time for me to save yours. At some point during the night, exhaustion caught up with him. Jake dozed off in that chair, his hand still resting on Shadow's paw. When he awoke, the first thing he noticed was the faintest movement. A twitch in Shadow's tail. Jake's heart leapt. He leaned forward, eyes wide, breath held. Shadow, he whispered, barely able to speak. Shadow's amber eyes flickered open. And for a fleeting moment, their eyes met. The tail wagged, weak but real. Jake let out a shaky laugh. Tears flowed freely down his cheeks. That is my boy, he choked out. You are not giving up. I knew you would not. Dr. Hayes entered the room just then. Her gaze softened as she watched the scene unfold. This is a good sign, she said. He is responding to your presence, Jake. Keep talking to him. It is clear you are his anchor. Over the next few days, Jake remained by Shadow's side. He barely left the hospital. He helped in every way he could, feeding Shadow, supporting him gently as he tried to sit, lifting his head, wiping down his coat. Each small milestone, the flick of a tail, the gleam of alertness in his eyes, was met with quiet celebration. One evening, as Jake sat beside his recovering partner, his phone rang. It was the precinct captain. Jake, just wanted to check in, the captain said. How is Shadow doing? He is fighting, Jake replied. Just like always. Well, the whole department is rooting for him. And when he is ready, we will give him the hero's welcome he deserves. Jake smiled, his chest filled with quiet pride. Thank you, sir, that means a lot. As he hung up, Jake looked down at Shadow. The dog was resting, but alert. You hear that, buddy? He said softly. Everyone is waiting for you. They know you are a hero. Shadow let out a soft huff. His tail gave a faint wag. Jake chuckled quietly. His heart, lighter than it had been in days. The road ahead was still long. But something had shifted. Shadow was not just fighting for his life. He was fighting for their bond. The partnership that had weathered every storm. And Jake would be there. Every step of the way. The morning sun poured through the tall windows. Its golden light bathed the recovery room in warmth. Jake sat quietly, a lukewarm cup of coffee in one hand, his other hand resting gently on Shadow's paw. Days had passed since the shooting, and every small improvement felt like a monumental victory. Shadow's breathing was stronger now, no longer strained, and his amber eyes were clearer, more aware, more alive. Though Shadow was still far too weak to move freely. Every time Jake spoke, that faint wag of his tail filled the room with something powerful. Hope. You are a fighter, buddy, Jake whispered, leaning in close. I knew you would not let this bring you down. Just then, the door opened gently. Dr. Hayes entered, a clipboard in hand. Her expression was lighter, the shadow of worry finally lifting from her face. Good news, she said, a warm smile touching her lips. Shadow's vitals are improving steadily. He is not out of the woods yet, but if this keeps up, we can begin light physical therapy very soon. Jake's chest tightened with emotion. His voice barely held as he replied. Thank you, Dr. Hayes. You have done so much for him. But she shook her head slowly. It is not just me. Dogs like Shadow, they fight because of the bond they share with their handlers. You are a big part of his recovery, Jake. Do not forget that. Later that afternoon, Jake decided to try something new. He reached into his bag and pulled out a familiar object. A battered rubber ball, faded from time, its surface marked with teeth prints from years of play. Jake knelt beside the stretcher, holding the ball in front of Shadow. Remember this, he said softly. Shadow's ears twitched. His amber eyes followed the ball slowly. Jake smiled, a warmth flooding through him. He rolled the ball just a few inches forward. Shadow, still weak, but determined, lifted a paw and touched it. That is it, buddy, Jake whispered. One step at a time, just like old times. The veterinary team soon began incorporating simple exercises into Shadow's routine. With Jake by his side, They helped Shadow to his feet for a few seconds each day. The first time he stood, his legs trembled violently. He collapsed almost immediately. Jake knelt beside him without hesitation. His hand moved gently over the fur on Shadow's back. "It is all right, Shadow. We will try again tomorrow. I am not going anywhere." And so the days passed. Slow, steady, filled with tiny triumphs. Each attempt lasted longer. Each paw step grew stronger. Jake never left his side, whispering encouragement, offering gentle touches, staying through every stumble and every lift. One afternoon, Officer Martinez arrived, carrying something in his hands. "Hey, Jake," he said, stepping into the room with a smile. "I thought Shadow might need some extra motivation today." He held up a framed photo. It was from their K-9 graduation day. Shadow stood tall in the picture, his black and tan coat gleaming, eyes sharp, stance proud. And Jake was right beside him, smiling wide, a team born in loyalty. Jake took the frame and placed it gently on the table beside Shadow's bed. "Thank you, Martinez," he said quietly. "He will be back to that." "I know he will." Martinez grinned. "No doubt about it. Everyone at the precinct is rooting for him." The next morning, Jake took a deep breath and made a decision. It was time to take Shadow outside. For the first time since the shooting, with the help of the veterinary team, they set up a small, enclosed garden area. A place where Shadow could feel the grass beneath his paws, where sunlight could kiss his fur again, where the world felt alive. Jake lifted Shadow gently in his arms and carried him outside. He laid him down on a soft blanket in the shade. The breeze carried the scent of trees and blooming flowers. Shadow's nose twitched. He sniffed the air. Familiar, peaceful, comforting. "You remember this, do you not?" Jake said, sitting beside him on the blanket. "All those days we spent at the park. Running drills, playing catch, training till sunset. We will get back there, I promise." With Jake's words guiding him, Shadow slowly, shakily, pushed himself up. His legs wobbled beneath him. But he stood. 10 seconds passed. Then 15. Jake's hands stayed close. But he did not interfere. Shadow held himself steady, then gently eased back down onto the blanket. Jake clapped softly, his eyes shining with pride. "That is my boy," he whispered. "We are on our way." Jake's smile beamed with quiet pride. "That is my boy," he whispered gently. "You are amazing, do you know that?" As Shadow's strength returned, so too did the bond between them deepen. They had always been close. But this journey, this battle for life, had transformed their connection. It was no longer just trust. It was something sacred. One quiet evening, they sat together in the recovery room. The hum of machines had faded into background whispers. Jake looked down at Shadow, his voice soft, but resolute. "You have always been there for me, buddy. Now it is my turn to be here for you." Shadow let out a low, content huff. He gently rested his head on Jake's lap. His amber eyes, though weary, glowed with trust. And something even deeper. Gratitude. Jake knew the road ahead would not be easy. But for the first time since that night, he truly believed they would make it through. Together. Days bled into weeks. Shadow's recovery, though slow, was nothing short of remarkable. The veterinary hospital had become Jake's second home. Every waking hour, every breath of effort, was devoted to his partner. The constant beeping of machines had faded, replaced now by the soft rhythm of Shadow's breathing, and the gentle thump of his tail whenever Jake entered the room. Small victories. But each one fueled something powerful inside Jake. Hope. Shadow's black and tan coat had begun to regain its shine, though a thin scar remained along his side. A quiet reminder of the night everything changed. Jake, always at his side, began working new exercises into their routine. Each small step, each stretch, each attempt to rise, brought them closer to the life they once knew. Then one crisp morning, Jake made a decision. It was time for a bigger step. "I think he is ready," Jake said to Dr. Hayes, his voice steady, hopeful. "I will be with him every second." Dr. Hayes hesitated, but then nodded gently. "Take it slow. He will let you know what he can handle." Jake carefully clipped the leash onto Shadow's collar. His heart beat louder than it had in days. As they stepped out into the sunlight, the world outside greeted them with warmth. The air fresh, the sky clear. The breeze carried the scent of grass and blossoms. Shadow paused. His nose twitched. And for a moment, he simply breathed it all in. "You ready, buddy?" Jake asked, crouching beside him. Shadow's tail gave a soft wag. And Jake smiled. "That is the spirit." They moved slowly. Shadow's steps were unsteady, but determined. Jake walked beside him, hand ready to support, eyes never leaving him. Each step was a triumph. A testament to Shadow's will. His strength. His resilience. They reached a small patch of grass. Shadow stopped. He turned to Jake. His amber eyes looked up with that same unspoken message. "I trust you. I am still here, because of you." Jake knelt beside him, resting a gentle hand on his head. "You are doing amazing," he whispered. "I am so proud of you." Nearby, a family stood watching quietly. 2 young children held their mother's hands. One of them, a boy no older than 7, tugged at her sleeve. "Look, Mom, that dog is so brave." The mother smiled softly, then approached with care. "Excuse me," she said gently. "Would it be all right if we said hello? He looks like he has been through so much." Jake paused for a moment, then nodded with a quiet smile. "Sure. But go slow. He is still recovering." The boy crouched down, extending a small, cautious hand. Shadow sniffed the boy's outstretched hand, cautiously at first, then gently nudged it with his nose. The boy's face lit up with wonder. "You are a hero, are you not?" he said softly. Jake's chest tightened as he watched the quiet moment unfold. "Yeah," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "He is." And in that moment, something shifted in Shadow. His tail wagged more, a little stronger. His posture lifted. As if somewhere inside, he remembered who he truly was. A protector. A fighter. A hero. Jake smiled, his heart swelling with pride. That evening, back in the recovery room, Jake sat quietly beside Shadow, his hand resting behind his ears. "You have always had that effect on people," he said gently. "You inspire them. You remind them what it means to keep fighting, even when it hurts." Shadow let out a soft huff, and rested his head in Jake's lap. The room was still, but the silence spoke volumes. A few days later, Dr. Hayes called Jake into her office. "Shadow's progress is incredible," she said, sliding a folder across her desk. "We have cleared him for light-duty training. It is up to you if you want to pursue it. But I believe he is ready for the next step." Jake glanced down at the report, his heart pounding. "He has been through so much," he said slowly. "I do not want to push him too hard." Dr. Hayes smiled. "Shadow's strength comes from his bond with you, Jake. If you are ready, he will be too." That afternoon, Jake led Shadow into the training yard. It had been weeks since their last visit, but the space was familiar, filled with the very obstacles they had once mastered together. Shadow's ears perked up as he stepped into the yard, his gaze scanning the cones, the hurdles, the open space. And Jake felt something stirring. "Hope. All right, buddy," Jake said softly, holding up Shadow's favorite ball. "Let us see what you have got." Shadow took a step. Slow, deliberate, uncertain. But Jake was there. Every step of the way. With each word of encouragement, Shadow's stride grew more confident. He weaved through cones, climbed over a low hurdle, and finally retrieved the ball with a proud, triumphant bark. Jake laughed. The sound raw and full of joy. Tears welled in his eyes as he dropped to his knees and wrapped his arms around Shadow. "That is my boy," he whispered, his voice breaking. "You are back." The veterinary staff watched from a distance, smiles on every face, their hearts full. Because Shadow's journey was never just about recovery. It was about proving that love, loyalty, and resilience could shine even in the darkest moments. As the sun dipped low across the training yard, Jake sat beside Shadow, the well-worn ball resting between them. "You have come so far," he said, his voice soft, steady. "And we are just getting started." Shadow leaned into him, his tail wagging gently. The bond between them, unspoken, unbreakable, was stronger than ever. A living testament to loyalty, to sacrifice, and to the unshakable lengths one would go for the one they loved. Weeks passed, and Shadow's recovery became something more than just a return to health. It was a transformation. The once critically wounded K9 who had fought for every breath now walked with strength in his step, purpose in his stride. His black and tan coat gleamed once more, and his sharp amber eyes, those eyes, were filled with fire again. Jake could only marvel, every single day, at the spirit that refused to give up. Shadow was not just healing, he was thriving, and Jake knew, without a doubt, the best was yet to come. Jake's phone rang. It was Captain Avery. "Jake, I know you are still focused on Shadow's recovery." The captain's voice was serious, low. "But we have a situation." Jake straightened in his chair. Avery continued. "There is a missing child, out near the state park. We have search teams combing the area, but it is tough terrain. We need Shadow." Jake tightened his grip on the phone. "We need the best," Avery said. "But it is your call. If you do not think he is ready." Jake's eyes drifted to the doorway. Shadow stood there, tail wagging faintly, as if he already knew. Jake's gaze locked with his partner's, and he did not hesitate. "He is ready," Jake said firmly. "We will be there." The state park was massive. Dense woods, rocky ground, twisting paths and cold wind made the search harder with each passing hour. When Jake and Shadow arrived, the area was swarming with officers, volunteers, and park rangers. The missing child was an 8-year-old boy. He had wandered off during a family hike, and the forest was growing darker with every moment. Jake knelt beside Shadow, clipped on his harness, and gently stroked his back. "All right, buddy," he said quietly. "This is what we trained for. Let us bring that boy home." Shadow's ears perked up. Jake held out a piece of the boy's clothing. Shadow sniffed it intently, his body tense, focused. Then he moved. "Go find him," Jake commanded. And Shadow took off, his movements sure and steady, his nose working with quiet precision. The search was long, grueling. They moved through thick underbrush and across uneven ground. The sun dipped lower in the sky. Long shadows stretched across the forest floor. Jake's radio crackled with updates, each one saying the same thing. No sign yet. Doubt crept in. Had he asked too much of Shadow? But Shadow never hesitated. Suddenly, he veered sharply to the right, his nose low to the ground, tail wagging with urgency. Jake's heart pounded as he followed close behind. Then, a sharp bark, loud and urgent. Jake pushed through the thicket. And there, in a small clearing, the boy, curled up at the base of a tree, shivering but alive. Jake dropped to his knees, checked his pulse, his breathing. "You are okay," he said softly. "We have got you." The boy's eyes opened slowly. Tears streaked across his dirt-stained cheeks. "I was so scared," he whispered. "You are safe now," Jake replied, voice steady but heavy with emotion. "Shadow found you." The boy looked up at the German shepherd. Shadow sat close by, his amber eyes fixed gently on the child. The boy reached out, and Shadow leaned in, nuzzling his hand with quiet affection. By the time they returned to the command center, cheers erupted. The boy was reunited with his family. Tears, hugs, relief. Officers and volunteers gathered around Shadow, praising him, thanking him. Jake knelt beside his partner, placed a hand gently on his head. "You did it, buddy," he said, voice thick with emotion. "You saved him." Shadow's tail wagged. His eyes shone with pride. For Jake, it was more than just a rescue. It was proof. Shadow was not just back. He was stronger than ever. That night, back at home, Jake sat on the porch. The stars above twinkled softly, and the quiet sounds of the world drifted around them. Shadow lay at his feet, peaceful, content, a hero once more. Jake looked down at him and smiled. "You never stopped being amazing," he said, "and I will never stop being proud of you." Shadow let out a slow breath. His tail thumped gently against the wooden porch. And in the stillness of the night, man and dog sat together. Not just as partners, but as survivors. As family. The air was calm, filled with the soft sounds of crickets and the gentle rustle of leaves in the night breeze. Jake reached down, scratched behind Shadow's ears. "You have always been a hero, Shadow," he whispered. "But today, you reminded me why we do this. Why we fight. You are incredible." Shadow let out a slow, contented sigh. His tail thumped quietly against the porch wood. Jake smiled, a deep, unshakable sense of gratitude blooming in his chest. Shadow was more than a partner. He was family. His anchor. His greatest source of strength and inspiration. As the stars shimmered above them, Jake leaned back in his chair, his heart full of hope. Their journey was not over. But together, they could face anything. In the days that followed, there was a quiet sense of pride and reflection. The rescue at the state park had done more than save a boy's life. It had cemented Shadow's return, not just as a K-9 officer, but as a symbol of resilience, of courage, of unbreakable spirit. Word of the rescue, and Shadow's remarkable recovery, spread quickly. The precinct decided to honor him. A ceremony was planned. Officers, families, even local media were invited. Jake was not sure how Shadow would react to the attention. But deep down, he knew his partner deserved every bit of recognition. On the morning of the ceremony, Jake took his time preparing Shadow. He brushed his coat until it gleamed, fastened his polished K-9 badge to the harness, and adjusted the fit just right. Shadow stood tall and alert, as if he understood that today was about something bigger. When they arrived at the precinct, the courtyard was already filled with familiar faces. Officers who had worked beside them, families who had followed their journey, and near the front, the family of the little boy they had saved. A large banner stretched across the stage, honoring Shadow, a true hero. As Jake and Shadow stepped forward, the crowd erupted in applause. Shadow's ears perked up. His tail wagged gently as he took in the crowd. Jake knelt beside him, whispering softly, "This is all for you, buddy. You earned it." Captain Avery stepped to the podium. His voice carried across the gathering. "Today, we celebrate more than just a K-9 officer," he said. "We honor a true example of bravery, loyalty, and perseverance. Shadow has shown us all what it means to fight through adversity. And to come out stronger on the other side. He is a hero in every sense of the word. He turned, gesturing to Jake and Shadow. Together, they stepped onto the stage. Jake's heart was pounding. A wave of emotion surged through him. Shadow stood tall. His amber eyes scanned the crowd with quiet pride, acknowledging every cheer, every tear. Captain Avery held out a small box. Inside it, a shining medal. Jake took it carefully and placed it around Shadow's neck. The crowd rose once more, applause echoing across the courtyard. Several officers wiped away tears, watching the dog who had once been on the edge of death, now standing proudly, a symbol of hope. When the applause finally faded, Jake stepped toward the microphone. He paused, took a breath, then spoke. "Shadow is not just my partner," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "He is my family. He has saved lives, brought hope, and taught me what it truly means to never give up." He looked down at his partner, the medal resting against Shadow's chest, tail gently wagging. "This medal," Jake said, "is only a small reflection of the incredible heart, courage, and love that lives within this dog." And in that moment, there was no doubt left in anyone's mind. Shadow was more than a survivor. He was a legend,